Hello, hello, everybody gather around for the ups and downs. I'm your host, Joel. I am very excited to be here. Um, I actually had to change locations from the first time that I recorded because there was way too much echo. And, when you're recording a podcast, you don't really want all that echo. Yeah. But I'm very excited to be here, very happy to be here. If you know me, you know me. If you don't, hello. How's it going? Uh, yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really map this out, but I guess that's kind of the whole spiel of a podcast. You don't really have like things that you have ready to say. You just kind of wing it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But anyways, this is the ups and downs podcast where I talk about life. Talk about my experiences with life so far over the past 17 years, almost 18, and how it's shaped me and how it's shaped the world around me. So I hope you find some comfort in this podcast. I hope you are able to relate to me and my experiences because that's really what it's about. Life is all about the ups and downs, which is why I called the podcast that. But you'll figure that out when you listen to it. So, yeah. So, anyways, hello, everybody. Today, I wanted to talk about friends. Initially, this wasn't going to be the topic that I was going to talk about. I actually already recorded an episode with a different topic, but I didn't really like that as a first episode. It felt way too in depth, and I'm sorry, it's my watch. I should probably silence that. Honestly, it's fine. Anyways, yeah, I don't want to go into that like as a first episode. I felt that there was too much detail. It was too personal. I'll get to it at a later date, but I felt that as a good opener for the podcast, I think talking about friends and what my friends have meant to me, especially over like the past, what's today, the 28th, probably like over the past 6 months or so, what they have really done for me and what they've really meant for me, or meant to me. Sorry about that. Um, yeah. So friends, we all have friends, right? that's such a that's such a like friends. We all have friends. No, but seriously, friends. We all have friends for the most part. We either have a large group of friends or a small group of friends. It doesn't really matter. We all have people that we can relate to and become acquainted with and whatnot. I have gone through quite a couple friend group changes over the past couple of years, and to be expected, of course. People change, they grow up, they join different groups of people, different social circles. It's a part of life. It happens. um yeah, I love my friends to death. I mean, that's a fact. That's not even something that I'm gonna sit here and be like, oh, I like my friends, they're cool. No, I absolutely adore my friends to death. It's not even close. It doesn't compare. No, don't get me wrong. I'll never compare my friends to my family or anything like that because they are two separate entities. Although sometimes your friends really do feel like your family. Um, I'm not saying that I prioritize one over the other, but um, when I can't tell things to my family, when I'm just not ready to do it yet, I know my friends are always going to be there for me. It's one of those things, right, where you develop an attachment to people that you really didn't think you would develop an attachment to, if that makes sense. It's really interesting. You meet people and you don't think that you're going to be really close with them, but you end up becoming inseparable. It's hilarious. Like, I have this friend, and we used to hang out a lot in early elementary school. We had a little four-person friend group back in early elementary, and it was, I wouldn't say early, probably late elementary, probably like maybe third, fourth grade around that time. And I used to talk to him all the time. We used to laugh about everything. It was great. And then we kind of drifted apart, and I didn't talk to him for years. I'm not even sure if he remembers hanging out with me back then. Like, yeah, I do, but I don't know if he does. Um, but I remember it was like early junior year. I probably actually probably around like the midpoint, I reconnected with him, and more so, especially around like prom. Like I remember going to prom. I mean, we were hanging out at that point already. Like I was already acquainted with him and whatnot, but we weren't like hanging out like all the time. But I remember like leading up to prom, we ended up talking a lot more, and we ended up getting each other's gamer tags or whatever, and it was really great. And he's become like one of my best friends ever, and it's amazing how close you can become with people just by having things in common and just by sharing a space with them. It's awesome, and that's that doesn't go without saying that you will of course have disagreements or problems. Most of the time it's jokey. If that even really makes it's not even a word, but you get what I'm trying to say. So but yeah, like speaking of prom, I remember like hanging out with him and my other guy friends at prom, and my bro chachos, and it was really special. Really surreal day, surreal moment, for me, and I'm sure for the rest of my friends as well. But yeah, I never take those moments for granted because they're just so special. They're so important. You find comfort in people, and my friends, I've found so much comfort. Let me tell you something, man. I I'm it's so weird to say. I don't like to cry in front of people, like at all. Like especially people who don't deserve to see me cry, like people who like I don't know, people who have done wrong by me, or people who I'm not comfortable like being vulnerable around. Like they don't like I hate crying in front of people. Like I can't stand it. And maybe that's just a me thing. I know some people are very open to expressing their feelings and emotions with others. Listen, don't get me wrong. I'm okay with talking about my feelings with my friends, but it's like I can't cry in front of them. That's like to me that's really embarrassing. Like it's just something that as a dude, and don't get me wrong, okay? I'm not saying that you can't cry as a man and you're not allowed to express your emotions. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm an advocate for that. Um, what I am saying though is as a man, you don't cry as openly to people as women do per se, and not all men are like that. But me personally, that's just how I am. I don't like to cry in front of people, but I don't think I've ever cried so much either over the phone or in person or while hugging one of my friends than I have in probably the past 5 to 6 months. I think like towards the end of the summer, probably like really early August, I remember having a mental breakdown, and I went to my friend's house. And me and him have been best friends since about the fifth grade, continuously too. I didn't really break contact with him ever. We've always been together at one point or another in time. So I remember going to his house. I was having a mental breakdown, and I can just remember like crying in his like I told him like what was going on, and like he was in disbelief about the situation as well. And I just remember crying so hard, and I was hugging him so tight, and his mom came over and she was giving me a hug, and it was crazy. Like it was just so weird, but it was so like I found so much comfort in it. That's like I said, it's not usually something that I do. I don't typically find comfort in crying to my friends because I don't like to cry in front of people. My family's an exception. I don't know if I said that I don't like to cry in front of my family, but my family's an exception. My family, they know me, you know, on so many different levels more than my friends do. So like crying in front of my family, I don't like to do it really all that much either, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't like to cry in front of my family because they're probably about the first people that I would cry to, honestly. But it would take me way longer to open up to my family about my problems, though, I'll tell you that much. Which is why my friends are so important to me. And I don't want this to be like a trauma dump and be like, oh yeah, like I go to my friends for everything and they're like my emotional support all the time. That's not it. Like my friends are so much more of an emotional anchor to me than like there's so much more than that. Um, but I do like to make it a point that like emotionally my friends have always been there for me and they've always taken my side and they've always had my back. And that's the beauty of having such a strong attachment to people who you share so much in common with. It's that you do anything for each other, you know, at least when you're willing to do so. You know, sometimes friendships don't last and you know somebody is done wrong by the other person or they're backstabbed and their trust is destroyed. Like yeah, it happens. It's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people, you know, betrayal. It's a rite of passage for everyone in their lives at some point. But yeah, I remember you know just crying to my friend and I think that was like the first time or one of the only times that he's really ever seen me cry in our what 7 8 year friendship. Um I think I've only cried to him probably twice in our 7 to 8 year friendship. It's pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, but no, he's like it's so weird. You know, you have friends that are there for you for the moment, and then they like force you to try to move on to like the next best thing, which I can appreciate. But sometimes you need the kind of friend where it's like they'll sit there and they'll listen to you talk about your same problems over and over and over again. But like I've got friends like that and stuff, you know. And I remember, you know, and I'll save this of course for a different episode. This is actually what the initial first episode was about, but I remember going through a complete like ego death come August, and I completely like just I lost the person who I was. I could not recognize myself. I was at rock bottom. Like I was literally down in the dumps. It was so terrible. Um, and I remember I was at the time I was still working my summer job as a camp counselor, and I ended up working with a lot of you know I worked with a group of friends at that summer camp, and it was really it was something really special to me. I remember I worked there with my best friend of I think what was this year? I think this is year 11 now. Um, I've been friends with him for over a decade, which is crazy to say. Um, 11 years is just absolutely insane. It is absolutely ridiculous to think about it that way. But I work a summer job with him, and I met this awesome guy. He was older than me. He had already graduated at that point, but he's really cool, and he's a really good friend of mine. And actually, my friend of 11 years, his cousin, not by blood, it's a little complicated, but he's younger than the both of us, and he's just such a good kid, and he has such a bright future, and he's just so go with the flow, and that's what I love about him. And it was us four, and you know there were other people as well that I knew from school that you know like I remember this one kid I played baseball with him for my high school team, and he's also just such a good kid with such a positive attitude. And I mean when he's hard on himself, he's hard on himself, trust me, like believe me, I've seen it firsthand. But I think that's what makes him such a good kid, is that he gives himself that tough discipline, and his mind is in the right place. You know, he's got goals, he's got aspirations, and he's a hard worker, and I really appreciate that about him. He's a really good person. Um, but yeah, I remember for the most part, it was really just the four of us. It was me, my friend of 11 years, his younger cousin, and my older friend. And we made so many memories that summer. I remember being in the back of my friend's car and we're just blasting white girl music on the way to Dairy Queen. um, and it was just such a fun time. I remember like it was like the second to last week of work I had a mental breakdown. God, I sound like such a not Like, just wow, I just sound like I cry and weep all the time. I don't do that. It's just strangely enough, I'm highlighting a lot of low points right now. Um, but I guess it's the premise of the podcast, so we're just gonna go with it. But I remember I had a mental breakdown at work, which I never do. If anything, work is actually one of my escape places to get away from a lot of the stressors that were surrounding me at the time. But I remember one day it was just like so much for me to handle. I remember being at work and I had my glasses on. I had sunglasses and I had them on the entire day. I didn't talk to anybody. At the time, I didn't have my driver's license. Um, so my friend used to drive us, both to work every day. And I remember being in the car with him and he was like, "Here, you good?" And I was like, "Just drive." And he was like, "What?" I was like, "Just drive. Like, please just go to work." And he was like, "All right, all right." So yeah, it was a rough day. I remember I had my glasses on and I was basically like crying in like small segments throughout the day, but I didn't want anybody to know that I was crying. So that's why I had my glasses on. And the kids kept asking me, like, "Are you okay? Why are you crying?" And I would just tell them to go and play with their friends because I couldn't handle it. Like, it was so bad. It was so, so bad. And I ended up talking to my, I mean, she's a coworker, but she's like the head of, she's like a site director basically. And she's really sweet. She was such a sweetheart. And I remember talking to her about it, and she gave me some advice, and I was like, thanks, and I went about my day. And but I remember after work, it was actually the three of them. They were like, "Dude, you look terrible." I was like, "Tell me about it." So that night we ended up going to this little this beach. It's like this little reservoir, not too far from where we live, and it's finished. It's got like a pavilion and a playground and whatnot, and it's like a beach as well. So we went there. I think they were hosting a show at the pavilion, and everyone was there. Everyone and their mom and their parents were there, and they brought a bunch of kids. I ended up actually seeing some kids from work, which is never a good thing, by the way. But I remember we went there, and we were just walking around using the swings at our grown ass age of 17, 17, 15, and like 20. And we were just messing around. It was a good time. But after that, we went to Dairy Queen, and the guys they tried to cheer me up and whatnot. So I friends are so special, man. Like I'll always say that. I'll always say that. Like I feel like if you don't have friends, you don't have anything. Because sometimes, not I don't want to like sit there and be like, oh, your family's never there for you. But when your family's not there for you, your friends are gonna be there for you. And vice versa. If your friends can't be there, your family's gonna be there. So I always praise friends for being that special kind of breed of people where it's like you're like a second family to me, and it's in my eyes, it's such a beautiful thing. Um, but yeah, so like that was what it was like having friends for my summer job, and then my main group of friends, my school friends, they really held me down from like August all the way until probably the year ended. I'd probably say up until like the new year. I did basically everything with them. I remember I actually ran for my class office with with one of my best friends, and we ended up getting elected president, me, and vice president, him. And we're working hard right now. Me, him, and our wonderful um, treasurer secretary. The three of us, we are trying to make some good stuff happen for our class. It's a work in progress, but trust me, we're working on it. And his girlfriend, who is literally just another friend to me. I mean, it's not even like I never call her his girlfriend because to me that's so reductive. Like, yeah, it's true, but like she's not just his girlfriend; she's also my friend as well. And it's so funny because whenever we hang out together, I'm always a third wheel, which I don't really care about. But the thing is that it never feels like a third wheel because we're all just so cool with each other, and we all love hanging out with each other. So it's like, I may get on their nerves from time to time, but what's a good friend if you're not, if you're not pissing them off, if they're not getting irritated by you once in a while. So, we're just all such good friends, and it never feels like I'm a third wheel. It just feels like I'm just chilling in the back seat of bro's car, and we're going to Spirit Halloween, or we're going to the mall, or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, those two collectively together, I see them as like one unit. Those two really, um, they really held me down for like the last 4 months of the year. And I had a lot of ups and downs in the last 4 months of 2025. I'll be completely honest with you. That's another story for a different day, though. But it was them. They would always invite me out to stuff. They would always plan things and keep me in the back of their minds, which I always appreciated. And I tried to do the same as much as I could when I decided to plan things for us. Um, so it was just, it was great. I don't really know what to say, but we did everything together. Like we went to, what was it? We probably went to Spirit Halloween maybe like 4 or 5 times, maybe six even, probably like 5 or 6 times throughout like the course of, I don't know, the 2 months that they were open. Probably like they were probably open for like 2 months, and we were up in there like almost every other week, whether it was me and this one friend that I had, or me and those two. It was just, it was always like, it was great. Spirit Halloween is such a core memory for me last year. We used to go to Spirit Halloween, try out on all the masks, all the hats. We just used to step on all like the pads to see like the animatronics work, and it was just so awesome. And besides Spirit Halloween, we went bowling, go karting, we went to the movies. Like, there was never a dull moment with my friends. Like, absolutely not a single dull moment. Even when it was just like us hanging out at one of their houses. Like, I remember I had a group of friends over a couple days before. I can't remember if it was the day before or the couple days before Halloween. I had them over for like a little pumpkin painting party in my basement, and I had the TV going with the music and like this whole little setting going on, and I brought out the table. I told everybody bring your own pumpkins because I paint a lot, so like I already had the supplies ready and whatnot, and I bought food for all of us, and it was really nice, and I enjoyed my time a lot with my friends. And then we went to Legends of Fear. That was actually, if you don't know what Legends of Fear is, it's like it's like one of those haunted trails. And I had never gone on a haunted trail before, but my friend, the one that of 11 years, I think he's been there once, twice, and he said that it's so much fun and it's really not as scary as you think it is. So, I was weary about it, but I wasn't gonna say no because all my other friends were doing it. So I was like, yeah, sure. So we were on our way. I ended up buying my ticket on the way to the place, and to say that it was a fantastic experience is an understatement. It was so much fun. It was unbelievable. And then the day of Halloween itself, I went trick or treating with my friends, and it was great. Um, your boy ended up coming first at his school costume competition with his handmade ODST armor. Not to flex, but I just wanted to put. I'm messing. I'm playing around. But I mean, I did actually. I did win that. Not that that's important, but I don't know. I just thought it was funny. But yeah. So that day after school, I was still in complete like costume, like my armor. I still had all of it on. Thank God I got dropped off at my house because there was no way in hell I was taking the bus home with all of that on my body. Like there was, and I couldn't drive. Like at that point, I had my driver's license already. So like there was no way I was gonna drive myself to school. I could not fit in the car. I quite literally could not fit in the car, drive myself to school with all of that foam armor on, and then get back in my car after school's over and go home. It just was not possible. So I told my friend, I was like, hey, um, I don't know if you're gonna go pick up your girl and you're gonna go to school together. I don't know what the case is, but I could really use some help getting to school because I can't drive myself with all this armor on. And he's like, yeah, I got you. So he came to my house, picked me up. We had a really, a good laugh about me like basically suffocating in my armor because it was so like padded around my body. It was so funny. It was so funny. Um, but yeah, it was a good time. And then after school, we waited a little bit. We went trick or treating. And by the way, unless you're like 25 or like even pushing 20, like I'd probably say maybe like 20. Actually, no, here's rule of thumb. If you're 20 and older, I feel like trick or treating, you're really pushing it at that point. Not that there's an age limit for trick or treating, but I feel like if you're trick or treating alone and you're over the age of 20, you you got some work to do. Like at that point, like I know like when I get older, I mean, I'm already almost there. I'm going to be 18 soon. Jesus, man. Time flies. Anyways, I know that when I'm 20 or 21, I'm probably not going to be trick or treating anymore. Actually, I definitely won't be trick or treating anymore. Um, I'll be out with some friends, maybe to like a party or something like that. Um, so I kind of took that Halloween as a really special one because in my mind, like this is my last Halloween trick or treating as a kid, and to be able to do it with all the people who I love so much and who really stuck around for all my bullshit was really special. So, I went out with them. We went trick or treating, and it was awesome. And then after we were done with that, we went back to my place. I invited a couple more friends after that, and we all watched a movie. Didn't go as according to plan as I had hoped, um, but we make things work. We make things happen. Um, but it was really cool, And I think after Halloween, I started to heal internally. From all the things that I was feeling and the emotions that were, running through my mind and my body. I think I think I was really starting to kind of get back in my element. And I always thank my friends for that because I feel like without them, I would still be stuck at square one. Um, and I think they would probably also agree. Uh, so I think what was it after Halloween? I think after Halloween we didn't really do much. There was a couple of Friday night lights games that we went to that were really cold, like extremely cold. Also, there was never a dull moment during our football games. We would always be front of the bleachers watching the game. We would go grab food at the concession stand and whatnot, and it was really fantastic. Um, and I kind of made it a point to try to go to every home football game as much as as many times as I could because you kind of look at it from a broader perspective. And it's like I'm a senior in high school, and I'm never gonna be able to have these experiences ever again. So have them now and capture the memories now and just cherish them for as long as you could. But I think what makes those memories so special is the people who you cherish them with. I remember it was whiteout. It was the theme was whiteout. We're all white, and for whiteout, a lot of the students they end up sneaking baby powder into the into the stands. So I think I can't remember who brought. I think my friend ended up bringing one of my friends ended up bringing like a tub of like just really random store brand baby powder. And I remember one of my other friends, he was there, and his girlfriend, not to be confused with the other two that always invite me out to places, but him and um, his girlfriend's usually there with her friend, um, and he is usually working at that time, so he'll get out of work and then come to the game. Um, but I talk to her sometimes, and she's very nice. She's very down to earth. Um, and she's a very just a very chill person to be around. You know, she's cool. And I remember my friend had brought baby powder, and I was talking to her, and I was telling her, I was like, yeah, we should go to what was it? I was like, we should go to Dave and Buster's after, and she's like, yeah, that'd be a cool idea. Um, and she's like, oh, but you know, um, why? I didn't really want to like out people or like say their names, but it's not like people are gonna know who they are unless you go to school with me. She's like, oh, Nate, Nate doesn't get out of work until this time, and I don't know if he's gonna want to go. I was like, okay, it's not really my problem. Like, I would love for Nate to go, but if he can't go, then he can't go. Just, you're always hanging out with your girl bestie over here, so bring her. Like, that's perfectly fine. Listen, the more the merrier is what I always say. So the game went on, and Nate ended up getting there, and we were having a good time, and the friend who brought the baby powder, Kyle, he ended up giving it to he tried to pour it on Nate, and Nate was like, nah, get away from me. And it was it was so funny. And I remember I ended up stealing the baby powder away from Kyle, and I ended up just tossing so much baby powder onto Nate. It was so funny. Or I tried to get him with it, and then Nate slapped the baby powder out of my hands, picked it up, and then chased me around. And I was like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and embrace the situation. So I was like mid bleacher, and he walked up to me, and I spread my arms like I was on the Titanic, and I literally just like, it was like raining. It literally looked like I was showering in like straight up dust. He poured so much baby powder all over my face and my hat and my shirt. It was so funny. And I remember just like looking down. I couldn't open my eyes, of course. And I remember like looking down and shaking my head like so violently to get all the powder off. And I just remember laughing so hard. And I was just so happy to be there in the moment. And I was laughing with Nate and Kyle, and they saw how I looked, and my eyebrows were white, and my eyelashes were covered in baby. It was just so funny. It was so funny. And then I went to Dave and Buster's looking exactly like that. I got to my car, and I told Kyle, I was like, let's take a selfie. So we ended up taking a selfie, and it was so funny. We ended up taking a selfie, and I got in my car, and I looked at him. I was like, hey, I got to get gas. And he's like, you look ridiculous. I was like, trust me, man, I know. So I got gas, told my mom, hey, I'm going to be out for a little longer. Okay, sure. So I go to Dave & Buster's, and I definitely got some weird looks. But, it was totally worth it. We went to Dave & Buster's. We had a good time. I found out that Nate has a underlying gambling problem with some of the gambling style, the machines where you got to, get the coins in the slot, and you got to see if you can push them down and maybe get like a cool card or something. Yeah, so he basically wasted all of his card credits on those, specifically the SpongeBob one. Just thought that was an important detail. But meanwhile, while me and his girlfriend and her friend and me and Kyle were busy having air hockey tournaments at the two tables in the middle, this dude was just in the corner gambling with some SpongeBob coins and a dream. But it was fine. It was cool. It was a nice experience. And I think after that, I didn't really do much with my friends. What was that, November? Yeah, because come Thanksgiving, we had a Friendsgiving at Kyle's girlfriend's house, and we had a Friendsgiving and watched Stranger Things. Because that was when the first volume of season 5 came out, and we watched like the first 2 episodes. I think that was the day that I ended up contracting the flu, and it was actually the first time my entire life that I had ever gotten the flu. So I remember the next day I went to the gym really early in the morning with Kyle. Oh, terrible idea, by the way. It was nice because the gym was empty, but I felt like garbage. Like, I genuinely felt horrible. But I still went to the gym anyways, and I didn't really start to feel the effects of the flu until I got home. And then I crashed on the couch, and then after that, my sister came home because she was, she was visiting for Thanksgiving. And I remember I got up and she looked at me and she's like, "You look absolutely horrible." I was like, "Thanks. I feel the same way." Um, so I was basically bedridden for like the entire day. Like I could not get out of bed. If I got out of bed, I would get lightheaded and I felt like I was gonna fall over. I wasn't like throwing up or anything. I have like an iron stomach. I don't really throw up often. Not that you want to, because no one likes throwing up. But yeah, I just remember being bedridden the whole day. I couldn't eat any Thanksgiving food. I couldn't even enjoy my time with my family because I was stuck in my bed, basically rotting away because of how sick I was. I had like 2019 C Day like playing on my TV and I was sweating my balls off. It was awful. And I remember I texted my friend, he's like, "Hey, are you good?" Or no, he texted me, Kyle texted me, he's like, "Hey, are you good?" I was like, "No, no, I'm not okay." And he's like, "Yeah, me neither." I was like, "What's wrong with you?" He's like, "I think I also got the flu, but I think I got it from you." And I was like, "Join the club, buddy." But with him, it was way worse because he actually did end up getting like super sick to the point where he like threw up and whatnot. But that was a just like a really dull moment, like Friendsgiving and Stranger Things, and then you can't get out of bed for the next 24 hours. So it was bad, but I got better obviously and whatnot. I sounded like Morgan Freeman for a couple days, so that was cool. Um, I mean, it wasn't cool how I was feeling during the time I sounded like Morgan Freeman, but it was whatever. Um, and then after that, December came and we were planning this trip to New York. It was me, Kyle, my friend Brody, who was the one that Brody's the one that I used to hang out with in late elementary and then didn't reconnect with until pretty recently. um, Me, Brody, Kyle, his girl, and another friend, and we planned this trip to New York, and we were trying to weigh out the pros and cons of like driving there, taking the train, what the fares would be like, prices, all that stuff. So we ended up like coming to an agreement, and um, we made the trip, and it was the first time that I had ever gone to New York without my parents, without my family. Really, it was just a group of kids just in New York enjoying our time. Super icy, super snowy, obviously. Instagram pictures were fire, though. I'm just gonna put that out there. Um, a lot of fun, and it was just such a wonderful time. And I remember being in New York, and it almost felt like I was closing a chapter on my life. Like New York really felt like the nail in the coffin for 2025 because I and like I said, I'll save this, for another episode, but 2025 really was one of the strangest years of my life. Like I had so many highs and quite a few lows, and I just remember being in New York, and I remember, we went to Central Park and we got to take pictures of the skyline and the pond, and we got to take like group selfies, and we went to the Rockefeller Center, and we got to see the tree, and we got to go to the MLB shop, and we had these really good burgers, but they were super expensive. But what do you expect? Because it's New York. And then we went to Times Square, and it was just like I think about it now, and it makes me so happy because I really did feel like I was closing a huge chapter on my life because 2025 was just ridiculous. Like it was just insane with how much good I got out of that year, but also how much bad came out of that year as well. And when when the new year comes around, I always treat the new year as a new way of it's like a fresh start for me, basically, like a new way of introducing new people and new relationships and new experiences. I never ever like to go into the new year and do the same thing over and over again because it doesn't feel productive for me. Like I don't want to go into the new year and be like, "Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing I did last year." No, no, that's not what a fresh start is about. You take the new year as an opportunity to basically rebirth yourself, to find a new version of yourself that you can love and appreciate, and figure out how to do, like figure out new things to do with yourself, and just have these new experiences that you can cherish for the rest of your life. I cannot begin to explain the kind of like reformation that I went through from like the month of August up until the new year. Like I completely destroyed the old version of myself in favor of something that I love so much more. Like I've never been more, it's going to sound kind of weird, but I've never loved myself this much. And part of that is and part of the reason why I feel like that is because I had friends to help me find that version of myself. Like I made some, you know, mistakes during my healing process and during, you know, my changes into the person that I am now, but I think about it and whether or not those changes were, or you know, whether or not those experiences were good or bad, my friends were there for basically all of it, and they saw it, and they never judged me, and they you know they always tried to encourage me to do the right thing, and they always only ever wanted the best for me, but they never judged me. They never told me, hey, don't do this, you should, don't do this, don't do that. They wanted to help me grow, and they wanted to help me find myself. And I think them being there for the entire journey and the entire duration of the year was, I mean, it was storybook writing. I always, now that 2026 is here, and I've had the time to really reflect on 2025 as a whole, I think 2025 for me was a rite of passage. I just think that everything in that year was meant to happen because my growth had not started yet. I don't think I was really where I wanted to be as a person. I don't think that I was truly happy with who I was. I think there was a lot of things that I disliked about myself, and I think, experiencing the things that happened to me and to the people around me, it was sort of like a like a way of rebuilding. It was kind of like the Lord's way of telling me the road is not going to be easy, but I'm sending angels to help you out. And to me, my angels have been my friends, because they are easily some of the most important people in my life. And I always tell them I don't know where I would be without you guys, because you're incredible. Like, you're incredible, and you deserve the world, and I wish I could give that to you, but honestly, we share that world together, so I think that's really enough. And I don't think that I don't think I would ever even consider trading my friends in for another group, because they're already so perfect in their own ways. They have their they have their goods and their bads. They have their flaws and whatnot, but that's what makes them special, is that they're not perfect, and neither am I. Who am I to judge somebody else? I'm not perfect, but I love my friends for who they are, because each of them brings something to the table that I can appreciate. And I think because each of them brings their own spin to the conversation, or their own viewpoint, or their own personality, it helped me find mine, and it helped me discover who I was and who I wanted to be. And I'm very happy with the person that I am. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm the most outgoing person in the room, but to say that I am not so much the extremely quiet person that I used to be is an understatement. I love to smile. I love to laugh. I love to be in the presence of those who also enjoy my presence. How can you not be romantic about life? It's beautiful, and it's so special. And I think it's so much more special when you have people who make it worthwhile, who make life worth living. And I think I kept living my life because of my friends. And I don't know where I would be without them, honestly. So, guys, if you're watching this, to my beautiful, wonderful friends, maybe those who I did not mention, and you did make it through the whole episode, I want you to know that I love you dearly, and you guys are my everything. So Yeah, but that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I've been for a while. So I think I'll leave the episode there. I mean, I've basically said all of that I've wanted to say for today. So, and I'm capping out at just around 45 minutes, which is what I intended to cap out for, um, which is nice. I have some homework to do, but yeah. So, anyways, if you enjoyed this episode of the Ups and Downs, please consider saving this podcast to your playlist, or whatever the case is. Um, that would really mean the world to me, and I would love it if you stuck around for many more episodes to come. I do intend to do this, not forever, but I do intend to do this for a period of time. Um, I think I started this podcast with the intention of doing it until I graduate. So until I graduate, and you are enjoying, or you did enjoy this first episode, um, I will be trying as hard as I can, to be a little more consistent, um, and cook up as many episodes as I can up until the day that I wear that cap and gown. So, um, yeah. So, anyways, if you enjoyed it, save it, and I hope you stick around for the next episode of the Ups and Downs. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.